You know how everyone's been obsessed with the Nuclei community templates? Like, that is the entire story for most people that use Nuclei. Run Nuclei, give it your target, cross your fingers, and hope that you didn't pull 20 different duplicates. But to be honest, that's barely scratching the surface, because once you spend a little bit of time reading the docs or messing around with all the different features and options that nobody talks about, you realize that you have been using maybe 10% of what Nuclei can actually do. So in this video, I wanted to fix that. Most hackers treat Nuclei like a bucket of community templates, and don't get me wrong, that's cool if you like to waste time, but that is not why Nuclei was built, and it's definitely not where it's headed. So I did reach out to Project Discovery and their team and asked them to send me someone who really lives and breathes this tool. That's how I ended up with Davis, who's one of their founding solutions architect, a Nuclei wizard, and someone who's been around the project long enough and knows the entire evolution from day one. So I kick things off with one question everybody thinks they know, but most people probably don't get it, and that is, what is Nuclei and who was it actually built for?
So Nuclei is an open source vulnerability scanning engine. It's been founded by some of the most, I would say, capable ethical hackers out there, bug bounty hunters, researchers, etc. And originally it was built for bug bounty hunters and researchers. The founders, Project Discovery, wanted to go ahead and allow users to actually scan for real exploitable vulnerabilities. And that's really the core of Nuclei. Tired of using scanning engines that just fingerprint out-of-date technology and notify you about your CVEs. The whole idea behind Nuclei and why it was created was allowing researchers, pen testers, bug bounty hunters, and eventually employees on security teams to scan for exploitable vulnerabilities very accurately, very scalably, and add the ability to customize on top of that.
Okay, so I heard a lot of different target demographics. I heard bug bounty hunters, researchers. I'm assuming red teamers are in there. And then you said
Yeah.
employees, which is really, really cool, because I know a lot of companies who I interact with from the bug bounty perspective. They tell me like, oh yeah, the findings that you send us on our infrastructure, we know you use a Nuclei template, or we just started creating our own, but we
Yeah.
still miss them, right? Is that why you guys are so big on the community focused templates and you have such a massive repository of them?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to this, right? The first is naturally as the project grew from, I think it started with like 20 templates and then grew. Naturally, the being an open source tool, we've garnered just the right type of people contributing to the project. People that love open source, especially in security, want to contribute to a tool that just gets better and better. And now we're at a stage where, like, in a month, we're seeing anywhere between 200 and 400 templates being added from the community. And now it's grown into this tool that not only is beneficial for a researcher doing their own bug bounty stuff to make some money, but we also hear, like you said, we hear from people on red teams, on blue teams at Fortune 100 companies that are using Nuclei internally. And it's funny because sometimes it's an organizational effort, sometimes it's an individual effort, but people realize that A, the tech is really good, but B, they get to essentially work with now tens of thousands of active contributors that are bringing them with novel research that they can contribute to, that they can benefit from, and then really, I would say, customize to fit their use case exactly how they see fit. And there's really no other, especially open source tool, providing that level of accuracy with customization and granularity.
I started bug bounties 10, 11, 12 years ago. And back then you had these vulnerability scanners that you had to pay a lot of money for. I think Burp Suite was just making their scanner. It wasn't super, massive as it is today. And then, correct me if I'm wrong too, Nuclei wasn't originally created for anything other than detection. Like, you gave it a match, you gave it a thing or a pattern you were looking for in an endpoint, and it would look for that. And I think you guys have scaled that into everything now. It does DNS, it does dynamic application security testing, it does looking for secrets. You can scan APKs if you wanted to at this point with Nuclei. And then you have your CVs and things like that that I've noticed. You have like a leaderboard of somebody that has over 1,000 submissions on just posting these CVEs and other templates to your repository.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it started very humbly, as anything does, and like I mentioned previously, started with I think like the day it was launched, like between 20 and 25 templates. And of course, those are going to start pretty basically, just looking at your simple HTTP request, et cetera. But now it's expanded into covering other protocols, like you mentioned, into covering DNS, advanced HTTP assessment, whether that's fuzzing capabilities or crawling, talking to various cloud providers as well dynamically. Now we have tests that execute Python live, and there's code protocols that you can follow to chain together lots of different requests and really dynamically test an endpoint or an application. So really excited to also see where that goes in the future with how fast things are accelerating. But it's come a long way in now only, 3 or 5 years of existing mainstream.
And I know you guys have just implemented AI. I say just, it's been there for a little bit, but with AI coming into mix, where is Nuclei headed to next?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to answer that question. So I think probably most what you're referring to is the AI ability to create templates and to create your own tests. And that's been really beneficial for, I would say, various use cases. One, we have people using the tool who maybe are not the most comfortable creating their own YAML file, creating their own template. Sometimes you have an idea. I mean, I still do that, right? You have an idea, you don't really know what to do, and you want something to guide you along. And that's where the AI template editor comes into play. There's also really cool dynamic use cases with that. We have people dropping in an entire bug bounty report for a vulnerability. We have people dropping in a pen test for a critical vulnerability that was surfaced on, let's say, like an internal network, on an IP, or one of their web applications. And the AI template creator can actually go ahead and help you author and create a template that truly works in a few seconds. So there's a really big ROI for people going onto the customer side of things who are paying out bug bounty researchers who now can create Nuclei templates for it. And I just see that getting better and better. I think one of the coolest things about Nuclei is how mainstream it's become, being an open source tool and really being pretty young as far as open source tools go, right? I think the proof is in the pudding. Like, you can go and ask ChatGPT, you can ask Gemini, you can ask Claude, and it knows what a Nuclei template is, and it will build it out for you. You don't need to prompt it and say, follow this process. And I think that's proof of how widely adapted and adopted it's become, but also gives us a lot of cool thoughts of how we can better create templates to accept AI input. And maybe there's more protocols that we can support. Maybe there are different attack vectors and fuzzing methods that AI could help us build out in these templates.
Yeah, I'll give this to you though. I've tried this with Claude, and I've tried it with GPT and the AI assistant you guys have, and by far that is the easiest way to create templates with. And honestly, hearing all of this just reminds me of how many people who have only touched like 10% of Nuclei, and that's why I finally sat down and just put this whole entire Nuclei course together that's covering all the things that people skip: writing your own templates, building workflows, scanning secrets, automating real tests, and all the custom stuff you have seen me do on my streams. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, okay, I want to actually use Nuclei to the way it is meant to be used, I will link the course down below, or just drop a comment saying Nuclei in the comment section, and I might just pick a winner or two. Okay, all right, enough about that. But Davis, I got one more thing for you. Can you challenge me and give me something wild to build for this video to really show people what it can actually do?
I think a really good place to start that will challenge you, but also set you up for success reasonably. I'd like to see you use Nuclei, create a format and a foundation for automatically testing for, let's say, cross-site scripting across various organizations with public bug bounties.
Okay, before we get to the crazy part of actually creating something that can find XSS automatically for us, we got to understand a couple of things when it comes down to Nuclei, and that is how templates are created. And if you look right here, I have a very simple template that I've created for one of our hubs on Hacking Hub. And the point of this is to look for a path stat and look for a status 200 and look for the keyword flag and internal use only. All of this is a lot of stuff to throw at you. So let's just break it down really quickly and talk about what any of this means. The first thing is you always are required to give it an ID. We're calling this the stats endpoint. Flag detection, you have to give it some metadata like the name of it. So stat endpoint. Flag detection, an author, it could be your name, my name, Hacking Hub, whatever you want to put. A severity, this should be an informative or informational or info, but I put it at low, and then I can do a description. You can see I put this pipe right here so I can do multiple lines, and it is going to explain what this entire thing does. And then you have tags, which is really, really important because this is how you can also organize all of your templates and kind of call them out. So if you want to just use everything that has the keyword flag in it, you can just do a -tag flag, and it will just run every single template that is tagged by any of these keywords like flag, for example. Then we come to the HTTP request part. This is where you kind of explain what the request looks like. So in this case, I'm doing a GET request. It could be post, it could be put, delete, whatever you want it to be. And then you give it a path. The base URL right here is how we call the -t argument. So if your URL is example.com, this is how it knows to put example.com here. And then it looks for the path stats. So if example.com has a path attached to it, it's going to just always add /stats at the end of that URL. You can also put something like host name here. I've seen people do, but base URL is my go-to. And of course, you want to kind of talk about how to match for the result. This part right here is one of the most important portions of this entire thing, because this is how you know something was successful and it matched the thing that we're looking for. So what we're doing here is saying that, hey, I want the condition to be an and. So that means all of these have to be true. If you put an or there, then it would be one of them being true. And then we're saying, hey, I want you to look for 3 types of things. The first one is the status. If the status code comes back as 200, that this exists on the website and it says 200, then that one condition is true. But on top of that, I want you to do a regex. If you want to learn more about regex, I'll link a course down below too, but you should probably know regex by now. You can also specify and say, hey, I want you to look for the keyword flag that starts with a curly bracket and also ends with a curly bracket. But in the middle, we're saying, hey, it can be 1 or more characters from capital A to capital Z, all the way from lowercase a to Z, and also numbers, because that's what the flag string looks like on our course. And then of course we're saying, hey, I also want you to look at the body of this request, look for these words and make sure it matches. So if it has the keyword internal use only, it's going to come back and say, yep, that matched, all 3 of those are true, and I have the page that you're looking for. And to just make sure this works, this is exactly what the page that we're going after looks like. I want to show you the template first and then show you what it looks like for what we're enumerating for. You can see we have a flag. This value is right there. Maybe in some other cases that flag may change. And then you have something like this internal use only thing right there. But you can also go deeper and maybe look for a specific file name in here or whatever it is that you are creating a template for. Super easy stuff. We can just grab this and now go into here and say nuclei -t, and we're going to call our flag AI. First, we're going to validate it. That's the number one thing that I've always do, and something that I stress over and over in our course, is to make sure this is a valid template, because if it's not, you're going to have a really hard time figuring out what's going wrong. And then of course we can say, hey, I want to do this specific URL, and it comes back and says, yep, I found the flag. And if we look at the next example, there is another subdomain that has the same thing, and you can see the flag value changes, but we can just do this and try the same thing with the same template just to make sure our flag regex works properly. And it looks like this does work, and it works. So we've just learned the basics of creating a template that looks for a specific endpoint. If it matches, it has the information that it's looking for. If all those criteria are there, then it's going to flag it as a valid use case. And if it doesn't, then obviously it won't work. But now I want to take this and make it into an XSS finder. And to make it a little bit more interesting, we're going to see if we can automate this whole entire process. Now we're going to take this one step further and create something that looks for XSS. But to do that, I got to show you quickly how things work inside of a Nuclei template at a high level. So we have another template right here. This one is reflected XSS fuzz. You have all the metadata here and the tags XSS, fuzzing, and dast. That's really important. I'll show you why in just a sec. But what we're doing here is we're creating a dynamic application security testing template, or dast, and we're going to have it fuzz for specific things. So in this case, we're saying for the HTTP, all you're going to do is take the payloads below, and we're going to call those payloads XSS. It could be anything you want. It could be cross-site scripting. It could be XSS 1, 2, 3. Whatever you name here is going to come down handy down here, which I'll explain. And we're giving it a list of payloads. You can also do this by just giving it a file name. It's something that you can do, but just for the simplicity of it, I'm giving it all these different payloads in here. And then what we're doing is we're defining our fuzzing portion of this template. Nuclei allows you to just pick where it is that you want to look at, whether it's headers, whether it's the post body, whether it's a query string, whether it's in the cookies. You can define that part that you're looking at and then tell it, hey, I want you to do a single mode. So one by one, I want you to fuzz by replacing that value with the word XSS, or for the value of XSS that is defined right here at the top of the list. So what it's doing here is pretty much seeing every parameter in the URL. It's going to replace it one by one until we get a match, or unless we don't, and it's going to move on to the next URL. And then, of course, we have our matcher condition, which is an and. It is going to match for the word in the body. So if the response body contains the XSS payload, so any of these above show up the way we have it set up, then it's going to alert us, especially if it is a 200. This portion right here isn't required. I just have it for just to make it easier, but obviously you can remove it because sometimes 404 pages could also be vulnerable to XSS, but that's just something that I have on there as an example. And what we're going to do now is, let's just say that we have a website and we've maybe manually tested it. We have done a bunch of subdomains like www here. We did labs earlier. It was one of the other ones that we looked at. And what we want to do is we want to go to Kaido or whatever proxy tool we use and kind of just get every URL, every API call, everything that we have found so far, and run it through Nuclei. For this example, all I'm going to do is look for XSS. So I'm going to copy all these URLs and feed it my template for XSS. And I'm going to just quickly make a Kaido file. I'm going to quickly make a Kaido file, dump all these URLs in there. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to feed Nuclei with a list of these URLs and then tell it to do a dash scan using the template XSS.yaml. And now we're going to see that it is finding a couple of XSS. Maybe some of them are duplicated, maybe some of them aren't, but you can see that it is finding and matching all of these for an XSS. So if you've had a massive application and you kind of want to just run everything for one last time to look for reflected XSS, this is a simple way that you can just copy all of those, copy your sitemap, copy all the URLs, copy everything that Katana has maybe crawled, dump it into Nuclei and have it scanned for an XSS. But that was easy because that's just an XSS with a CTF that I have designed for this course. We're going to up it up a notch, and I'm actually going to use a real bug bounty program and launch against it and see if we can find any vulnerabilities live throughout this video. And to do that, what I have done is I have quickly just launched Waymore against Deer.com, and I've had it create some of these URLs for me. You can see that it's doing a Waymore here. Let me show you exactly what it looks like. This is all the examples or everything that it has found. What I'm doing here is I'm just telling it, hey, I don't want to actually use some of these other things. Let me just go back to the top here. You can see that I'm just doing a grep v to exclude deer port 80, and then I'm doing a sort u to make sure everything is unique, and then we're just feeding it one of our templates. I'm going to actually do this xss.yaml and have it look for cross-site scriptings and see what it finds. I'm going to output this to xss results.txt, and as soon as this is done, we're going to come back and see what we have found. And after waiting an eternity, we're finally done scanning. It's actually not done scanning. It's going to continue going, but we can see that it has found its first vulnerability. I bet you by the end of this video, we're going to find a bunch more, but just to confirm this works, I'm going to copy this right here. We're going to copy it, and we're going to go into our browser, put that in there, and confirm that it is indeed vulnerable. So we have our first vulnerability, and it was fully done through just looking at some passive reconnaissance data like our Wayback results. I have a whole video on this on my YouTube. Go check it out. But we just took the results from that, fed it to our one and only XSS template that we have for this, and it has found us some vulnerabilities. But we can also go a step further. I want to quickly just show you something. Go into here, and instead of just giving it any templates, I'm just going to give it a URL. We're going to ask the AI functionality within Nuclei to test every query parameter for reflected XSS one by one using generic XSS payloads. Honestly, you can probably go as far as giving it a option to potentially be able to bypass the filter on here as well if there was a filter, but let me quickly clean this up. But I just want to kind of show you this is another option. It's one of the cool options that you have within Project Discovery, and what makes this really cool is that also if you go on their website, they have a template assistant that I love to use sometimes just to better my templates or just create new ones or whatever it is, and it will actually show you that in just a sec. Let's launch this. That didn't work because we didn't give it DAS. That's the one thing that always gets me, so it's gonna give it one more second, and it looks like it came back and found our XSS. And the cool thing is it is actually giving us the template that it had created, so we can download it. Actually right here, that was the local file. So it's actually showing us the template that it has created, so you can kind of see what it has done. and if you want to modify it and so on. So this is an absolutely banger of a tool by Project Discovery. It's one of the coolest things that you can do. I don't like using ChatGPT to create these templates because, like I was telling you in the interview portion, it's not really reliable, but this one is absolutely a banger and does the job right every single time. And I'm going to quickly just switch over to the screen right now and show you that it is finding more and more XSS. It's found something on Investor. We already knew the other one, and we can just copy this and check it out as well just to make sure that it works. But I just kind of want to show you that you can simply just find vulnerabilities within each of these bug bounty programs. But just keep in mind that this is not a real vulnerability, because the thing that we did miss in our template is to make sure that the content type is set to HTML and not some JSON format like this one. You have to always write a template that is going to not have any false positives. So if this was me right now, I would go back in there and make sure that the response header includes HTML text within it before I launch another scan. One more note on this, please don't go report this to John Deere's bug bounty program. If you look at their scope, it highlights that they do not take reflect XSS, and that is partially why I've looked for it within that bug bounty program or this VDP to show you throughout this video. All right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it taught you a little bit of how you can use Nuclei. It's one of the cool things that I have enjoyed doing with Nuclei myself. And if you haven't already, please do me a favor, drop a like, drop a comment, and make sure you hit that subscribe button and you become a Nahomie. We are almost at 200,000 subscribers. Let's get there by the end of the year, and I will see you all in next week's video. Peace.